Hello and welcome to the King Heroes Journey podcast. My name is Beth Martins. It's November 6th, 2025. Sometimes I say that just to remind myself. I've become incredibly disoriented these last few weeks around time change. I'm now considering it an actual disorder. I have Mike Wilkerson on today. I'm super excited to speak with him. I apologize for last week. There was definitely some confusion. I can see lots of messages in the chat. Where's Beth? Where's Mike? What's going on here? And they're trying to figure it all out. But we made it. We are here. I am definitely excited to talk to Mike. We're live on Facebook and YouTube and X, also Rumble. If you are able, please help me share out this link so that more people could find us. I know there was definitely some confusion. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Mike on. Hello, Mike, and welcome to the King Heroes Journey.
Hi, Beth. Hi, everybody.
So great to have you here. This is our second interview. I thoroughly enjoyed the first one. We got such a great comment. They said that my interview skills, while always tremendous, continually evolve. The conversation with Mike was so particularly good. I don't have the words to convey. We were really in sync. So again, no pressure.
Oh. I'll have to rewatch it.
You're right. Yeah, me too. That's what I figure. If I ever lose the internet, I've got my whole library of past interviews, and I'll just put them on autoplay, and that'll be the rest of my life.
Yeah, wealth of information there.
Yeah, exactly. Hello, Mary. Nice to see you. Welcome to the stream, and come and say hi in the chat. Remedy Report was here last week. Thanks for all the help. He's a good tech guy, and he was trying to troubleshoot for me, wondering what was going on. But do come and say hello in the chat. It's always nice to have you guys tune in. This sane lady from my own province here in Manitoba. We have a date coming up for dinner. Looking forward to that. She's connecting me with an accountant. I also have an accountant disorder. It doesn't matter who I've worked with. It seems to be just a complete, I don't know, some like weird. Is it an archetypal thing, the shadow of that, or one of those?
Well, accountant usually means taxes, and taxes means totalitarian oppression. So one goes hand in hand.
Right. Yeah. The accountants are kind of like managers in that situation where they have no power. They answer to the government and they answer to the client. Now, I've never seen that happen really well. The other part.
The best accountant is one that despises the IRS.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that they're trying everything sideways. But yeah, I just can't get them to actually do the work. So I'm trying to transition, and wish me luck on that. But thank you. So if you're not familiar with Mike Wilkerson, he is the author of a new book that I have got halfway through called The Hacker Prince. And I find this incredibly intriguing. I know that I myself will never have hacking skills, but I'm so interested in that. And your book does a good job. Like I said, I managed to read half of it, and it does a good job of showing the evolution of how you took on that role. I'm curious about the archetype behind the hacker and what that is. So maybe I'll pipe in if I start to feel it or see it. And for those that don't know Mike, for over a decade, he has worked as a chiropractor in Spain, where he is now, and where his mission has been to help improve improve health, one spine and mind at a time. Mike has always asked unconventional questions. As a teen computer hobbyist turned hacker in the early 80s, his thirst for deeper knowledge led to wild adventures with some of the top hackers in the nation. In 1985, the fun ended with a brief incarceration for his infiltration of computer servers at Microsoft and 3 other Seattle corporations. Interest in examining the unquestionables never waned. In the decades that followed, Mike evolved from mischievous hacker to benevolent backcracker, and in his recent years, an independent researcher. His research and presentations are available on the Stellium7 YouTube channel, and I did post a link here in the chat. You could click right on if you want to go and sub to him and follow him. He's got a wonderful audience as well. I know I've met some nice people through you. Hello, Genevieve. Welcome. Is there anything more that you want to add, Mike, by way of introduction? What you're up to today?
Actually, closer to 15 years now,
15.
working on the Costa Blanca in Spain as a chiropractor.
Right,
So
right.
from hacker to cracker.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, the chiropractic, it's such an interesting, before we get right into the meat of the interview today, the chiropractic is one of those fields that I saw a chiropractor. I've got a frozen shoulder thing, and I haven't cracked the code of that yet, and saw a chiropractor for a good solid year. Just, gave it a try, did the x-rays, did all the testing, and I'd go in and she'd shoot me with her little gun. I'm sure you know what that is.
Mhm.
Little thing.
The activator.
Is that what it's called? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm sorry to say it didn't do anything. There was
Yeah. Was
sometimes
she doing osseous adjustment as well, like clicks and pops in the spine?
almost none, every so often.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for something like frozen shoulder, it often needs a little more intense treatment. I've had it myself. It is not fun, especially as a chiropractor, because you're using your shoulders for every adjustment, So it's short jolts, quick movements are excruciating when it's really frozen. So that's exactly what a chiropractor does all day long, short little quick jolts, So it was not fun. Chiropractic helps, stretching helps. I would get a massage gun, one of those, the vibrating ones, and use it on a regular basis. But it's just a time thing also with frozen shoulders. They don't know why they come, and they just kind of fade away, or they stay and people have an ongoing restricted motion. So you got to work at it to regain the mobility.
Right. Yeah, that's what I've noticed. I was trying to push it because I haven't really noticed it that much. I've just learned to work around it. That's what a disability does, is that you stop making the motion that hurts, and then it seems better. So I was pushing it and like overextending it, and then for 2 days the shoulder told me, "Don't do that. What's wrong? What's your problem?"
Yeah.
Yeah. I also had
Yeah.
an Did you want to say more?
No, I was just going to say I sympathize with it because I actually had two frozen shoulders. So I had it in one, and it took about a year and a half. And then I was so relieved it was finally gone. And then it came on the other side. And I have no idea why. I think, stress, emotional stuff. There's, I don't know, German new medicine probably has something to say about that, but I don't know what it would be.
Right. Yeah. What was I going to say? I saw an osteopath after that, and there seemed to be some benefit from it. And the one thing that was interesting, she said that the deltoid is a common repository of toxicity, and so I wondered if that wasn't a part of it. How it's restricting the motion with stuff in there. So I'm on a major detox. I've been doing this for over a year now, and wondering if that's going to help it. But my osteopath said, yeah, they just go away and nobody knows why. It's like, okay, good. So I won't worry.
Thankfully.
Right. Got it. Yeah. It's a strange one. Hello,
Yeah, but
Patricia.
when you're in the middle of it, it can feel like it's never going to go away. So you just have faith and and yeah, envelop it with light and healing energy.
Exactly. Rather than that, well, that's the interesting part about when you've got a part of your body that either has pain or it's not functioning properly, is that unconsciously we tend to disapprove of that part of our body. And that's programming, that's a withholding of love. And so that is an added problem to the original problem.
Yeah, I often talk with people about the language they're using when they describe their bodies. It's like, that's my bad, this, that, or the other, or,
Exactly.
they speak very disparagingly of their own body, and they don't realize that the symptoms are there as a clue, that it's a message, and people don't want to hear the messages oftentimes. So.
Yeah, 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 and being loving with something is really different than withholding love. So yeah, Jackie K, you had the shoulder issue and you blamed it on oxalate dumping. I stopped eating kiwis after I um, heard that from you, just in case.
Oh no, I had one today.
Oh, did you? Yeah, 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 yeah. It's apparently concentrated in the seeds. And I find that fascinating too, because the plant will hide its biggest poison in the part that it would reproduce with. And
Hmm.
maybe that's how it teaches animals, like, yeah, don't eat at least too much of me so that I can survive and reproduce. Yeah.
Moderation is key.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Cycling through things that you're not sure of or are high in toxins make them sometimes or never. Yeah, yeah, and same lady has the same problem. Darn, constant pain. Oh crap! Yeah, I only have pain when I move the wrong way. But
Mm.
yeah, looking forward to full extension at some point. All right. Well, without further ado, before we get too deep in the rabbit hole that I always can go into these days on detox, that's a never-ending fascination, learning more and more every day. Let's talk about hacking. That it seems like I'll just say this kind of bluntly is that I like knowing you that you're a hacking like would you consider yourself to be an expert at hacking?
Absolutely not.
Oh, absolutely not.
No, no. I left hacking after I got busted and my court case ensued, and I never went back. I was on the cutting edge of a new wave of laws that were making it extreme, you know. And so I knew if I reoffended that it would not be good for me, and I would probably end up in prison for maybe multiple years. And other hackers did go to prison for multiple years. So I was lucky to get off lightly, but I walked away from a world that had really been the better part of my social life for 4 or 5 years, and never went back. I turned a page and started a new life basically. So it's strange for me to be talking about all this stuff now. The October 17th this year or this month, last month was the 40th anniversary of the day I got busted.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
literally like 4 decades ago that these events happened. So um, it's interesting to revisit them, but it feels like another life, like another person. So it's a bit unusual actually to discuss these things, but I'm happy to talk about it. They're fun subjects.
Right, right. And it must have been isolating, eh? When you lost your community, you had to walk away from all of that.
Yeah, I was forced to get back into the real world, and I was living in Seattle at the time, but I was from California, and I just random circumstances, which I talk about in the book, caused me to end up in Seattle, and I was only there for a few months when I got caught, and so after that, I the first job I had was making sandwiches in a deli called Apples Etc. that was in a mall, and it was actually fun. Not so much the work, but just actually having a real job and supporting myself for the first time. And I started to make friends. I had a lot of challenges when I was in school. In my hometown in Ojai, California, um, both from junior high and on to high school, that made social life tough for me. And so it was really refreshing being in Seattle and meeting new people and just being accepted for who I was and not having a shadow of, preconceived notions that were following after me. So it was actually a really fun and rich time in my life, which I don't discuss in the book because it happened. Those are things that happened after the meat of the story.
Right. So that's really interesting because just by observation of the times that I mean, have we met in person? I feel like we have. We did it in Acapulco.
I think we talked about this last time. I can't.
Okay.
I think we did it in Acapulco, but then I think maybe we were not at the same year. So I don't know. It was not the last one, but the one before that I was at.
I was there too. Yeah,
You
yeah,
were.
we did, yeah,
Oh
we did.
wait, were you one of the ones that came down with Montezuma's Revenge?
Not
Were
that
you?
year.
No.
Not that year.
Okay, because there
Last
were a
year,
couple people that were just knocked out.
I know, big strong men.
Topher Gardner.
Kaboom. Yeah, yeah. No,
Oh,
it
God.
happened to me last year. I was there for 48 hours, and then I was out for the entire conference, just sweating it out and crying it out, and
Oh, actually, I do remember seeing you on stage now. So yeah,
right.
we were there, but I don't think we really talked much, if at all. So
No, I just so I was observing you, and you're incredibly social, right? And you're very connected, and people love you, and so how do you think that shifted from those early days when you felt like that wasn't
I've
your
always been pretty gregarious and you know, loved socializing. I think part of it is being an only child, so having no siblings, like, you know, if there were no friends around, you had to go out and make them. So I was, you know, I was eager to interact with people. So I guess that never left me, and that was one of the frustrating things, you know, when I was going through school, is that there was, back when I was 12, at the end of 7th grade in junior high, a rumor was spread about me that that I was gay, and that I'd been caught doing things that I hadn't done. Neither were true, but everyone loves a good rumor, and so it spread like wildfire through the school, and basically haunted me for the next 3-4 years, and until I dropped out of high school. So it was sports, tennis and soccer that really, and later cycling, that were an outlet for me. So you know, I had hobbies and passions, and was always nuts about girls, but I was a very late bloomer. So that part of my life was also you know, delayed. So when it came to computers, that became a real welcome outlet for me, because I, not only was it exciting from the tech perspective, but I started to make a whole social life. You know, I knew people all around the country that I didn't know in person, and we weren't doing video calls like we can now, but we were doing a whole lot of other stuff. And so I got to know a lot of people, and eventually I met a bunch of those people in person. And those are some of the fun chapters in the book, are those exploits.
right? Yeah, I think I'm right in the middle of them, if my memory serves correctly. Yeah, the only child thing. My mom was an only child, which was very unusual for her generation. And then my son is an only child too. And it was funny, just the other day I was coming into full realization, like, his children won't have aunties and uncles and first cousins. And it's just like,
Right.
oh wow, that's wild. You know, it was kind of disappointing. It took me 18 years to be disappointed by that. I was grateful to have any child at all. I was told I wasn't going to conceive after all the chemo that I did. And so I think it's a miracle that he exists. And but I can recognize that say as a toddler, he was incredibly social. He would just go up to anybody. He would talk to them. He was fearless. There was just this, like, you know, natural, yeah, I want to interact and be with the people and everything like that. And COVID was so tragic for him, because that was his main and only social interaction in the world. So they took school away from them. And when it came back as a possibility, he's like, oh, I'm going. You can't stop me. Because by that point, I'm like, I don't think this is a good idea. It's not a good environment. Or maybe force inject you, or whatever could happen. And he just was like, nope, I am going to be in school. And he made so good on it, because he woke himself up and you know, didn't drink the Kool-Aid, didn't get injected, could tell the difference between I don't know, real people and not real people, about half in the school. So he did well, and he developed a lot of friends and a good social network out of it. So yeah, I'm pretty happy for that. Okay.
Yeah, it's COVID messed with so many children's lives and adults, obviously. So
Hmm.
it's socially, I just think of all the children who were wearing masks and, were still learning language and couldn't see faces or expressions or lips moving. And it's just, so there's going to be a lot of people with stunted growth from that.
Hmm. Hmm. Exactly. Yeah, and then the trauma, just, I mean, there's a lot of layers of it in things that happen, lifetime, you just kind of get through it. And then the real healing often takes place later when it's allowed, the wounds are allowed to come up. And so, yeah, I've often thought about doing a support group for people that are trying to clean up on all of that stuff. Not an easy.
Unfortunately, I think the majority of people who kind of fell for all the lies have buried their heads in the sand and are just trying to forget that it happened. So it's like a PTSD sort of thing, rather than going, wait a minute, they lied to me about that. They lied about this. And that, I mean, there's so much evidence and information out there now that shows that literally every step of the way was a lie. And then the entire scientific foundation of the claims was also a lie. So, people that haven't woken up to that yet, I don't have a whole lot of hope that they're going to wake up at any point when it comes to the kinds of lies that the government perpetrates. So.
Exactly. Yeah, how would I phrase this? When you believe lies, when you tell yourself lies, then you're relegating a lot of data to your unconscious. You're literally not registering. I had one nephew, I ran into him at my sister's wedding because she's his son, her son. And he had told me, like, Auntie Beth, never message me again. You need help. I hope you go on medication. I never want to talk to you again. It was like devastating, absolutely devastating. So I run into him at the wedding, and he was one of the few that was being kind with me. He said, "Hello, how are you?" And I wasn't getting that from anybody else. And we even sat together and talked, but there was like zero mention of what took place between us, the falling out, or there was no resolution. There was no, I started to approach something at one point in the conversation, and you could feel him going like, no, 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 Auntie
Don't
Beth,
go there.
we're not going there at all. And yeah, just kind of shut
Yeah,
down.
I had one close cousin unfriend me from Facebook and cut off all contact, and then another one of my cousins was so deep into the propaganda that she had both of her children jabbed, and they stood with the Band-Aid and thumbs up in front of a life-size, which would have been small, cutout of Fauci. And so they're like flanking Fauci's cutout, going, we've got this. And I'm just like, it just made me want to cry, actually,
Mhm.
that there was so much worship of him and the settled science.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's a deep one. We could do a support group right now, or we could go on and talk about your book. Oh man. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, let's talk about hacking. And so obviously you started on, if my memory serves, was it an Atari, or what was your first computer again? You have to remind me.
Well, the first one I had in my home was a Texas Instruments TI-99 4A, which was a behemoth. It was one of the first 16-bit machines, and it had all these expansion slots, and it was going to be just the most amazing thing. Tape cassette drive, so you could load games, but nobody was writing any software for it, so it was really boring, and everyone had either a Commodore or an Apple, and eventually I got an Apple II. But the first one I ever got my hands on was a pet Commodore that was in the local library that
Oh,
I
that's
was
what I
able
was
to
looking for.
use. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was this horrible little thing. It had a 40 character screen and a little scrunched up keyboard that was, even with my small hands at the time, was really hard to type. And yeah, so it was a I was trying to teach myself BASIC, and I wanted to learn how to program so that I could make video games of my own. That was the original motivation, because I understood that the video games that I was addicted to, that were down at the bowling alley, were the stand-up consoles, Star Trek, or Space Invaders and Asteroids, and that first wave of video games that came out. Up until that point, it was pinball machines and foosball. And then once the video games came out, it felt like the future was here, and it was just going to be a matter of time before we were transporting from one place to another and flying at warp speed. So I just loved the video games, and that was the motivation to try and learn how to program. But I actually never did learn to program. There are a lot of hackers that are amazing programmers, but then there are other hackers who are incredible hackers that never learned to program. And some might wonder how that's possible. And the way that's possible is that the weakest link in any security system is always the human element. So if you know how to hack people, you can get them to give you whatever information that you otherwise might have had to, do some kind of a tech hack in order to get. So I had my weaknesses and I had my strengths, and I focused on the strengths, and programming was not one of them. So I was good with software packages and operating systems, and I could tweak programs a little bit. I knew the basics of BASIC, but I never got deep into the programming side of things. So yeah, it was a love-hate relationship with computers from the beginning.
Okay. There you go. Interesting. That might be the alchemist archetype, who's prone to love-hate kind of relationships.
I think it was just more frustration that I wasn't good at it from the get-go, and I knew how much work it was going to take to get good at it. So, yeah, I took your test. I did it last time also, but I couldn't remember what I was. So I'm a nurturer, which you would expect as a chiropractor. So
okay, yeah.
Hopefully an awakened one.
Right. Yeah, with good boundaries, and you don't hurt yourself helping others is the main thing.
Less and less.
Good.
I have numerous times. It's hard on shoulders and wrists and ribs.
Right. Oh, just the physical wear. Exactly. Yeah. That you're behind the eight ball with that. I know that to be the case. And the nurture is a beautiful one. I never get far from that myself. So yeah, thanks for taking the test. That's awesome. If anyone listening wants to learn their King Hero archetype, they can do that in 10 minutes at my website. You can just sign up for that. I've got a direct link, but not right in front of me this minute. It is in the show notes below, I believe. And yeah, so then how would you describe the evolution of computer technology? We have this impression, and they want us to believe that things are so accelerated and so advanced. And what's your opinion of that?
Oh, that's a deep question. I think a lot of technology was sequestered from previous eras and is slowly being trickled out. Like, a lot of people are marveling over the advancements in AI right now and how quickly it's gone. And they don't ponder the fact that, they might have had, generations of AI that are way more advanced than what we have now a long time ago. And they've just been trickling out earlier versions, So it's possible that they've had access to this kind of technology for a long time and have been faking all kinds of stuff that we weren't aware of. But when it comes to the evolution of computers, I mean, when I started, my first modem was a 300 baud modem. So it was all text-based, and the text would go about this speed across the screen. So it's just fast enough that you could read it. Yeah, maybe a little faster than that. And then eventually I got a 1200 baud modem, which made it too fast to read. So I was like, it doesn't need to be this fast, you know? And then eventually, once you started trading photographs or different software packages, you needed that bandwidth. So then it went to 2400 and 14.4 and 28.8, and then 56K, and you know, eventually your fiber optic stuff. So I've been there like since the beginning, where it was like cradle handset, you know, so you didn't plug into the wall. Literally the computers were talking to each other with these squeaking, high pitched noises that sounded almost demonic. And you could, you know, you connect to the phone line, you could hear those sounds, and then you put the receiver down, and you were connected, you know. So it's like, it's interesting how far it's come, you know, in just in my lifetime, to see the progression that we're doing this right now. And there's all kinds of people listening in. But there were a bunch of things that we were doing back then that were pretty sophisticated, and most people didn't even know they were possible. Like, we were hacking the phone network as well, not just computers, but there were ways, like, you could make free calls with calling codes. I don't know if you remember Sprint and MCI.
For sure.
People who wanted to save money, you know, instead of shelling out huge amounts to AT&T, they could go with these other services. But they were also a hassle, because you had to dial a number and then dial your personal code for billing, and then you would dial the number you wanted to call. And also you would have degraded sound quality. So like when you were connecting with a modem, you would get line noise that would garble the text on the screen, and sometimes it would cause the call to drop and stuff. So the codes were one way, but then there were these things, they were called the colored boxes. There's blue box and red box. Those were the most famous of them. And what these did was they reproduced tones that the telephone network would use for call routing. So like when you would call an operator to make an international call, they would route the call, and then you would hear in the background this and these tones were different from the tones on your keypad when, you know, you were using your home phone. And there were multi-frequency tones that you know, ran that system. So people figured this stuff out long before I came along, and had actually produced devices that would replicate these tones. So the most famous of the tones was 2600 hertz, and there was, I think it still exists. Oh, someone just said it's in the chat, 2600 hertz tone. Yeah, that was the master tone, because when you blew that tone, it would knock the telephone operator off of her trunk. The trunk was the line that she was operating. So she would just think the call had terminated and go on to the next call, but you actually had control of her computer at that, or not computer, but her trunk was what it was called, the line. And so once you had that, if you could reproduce those multi-frequency tones and knew how to use them, you could do anything that the telephone operator could do. And that, you know, you could do international calling, you could do conference calling, you could do all kinds of different things. And like one of the highest level things that some of the freakers is what they called themselves. It's a combination of phone and freak, so freak with a PH. They would use these tones, and like the highest level of that skill was busy line verification, which is like emergency interrupts that the operators could do. Like if a phone was off the hook for 2 days straight, and you were wondering, like, is it really off the hook, or is somebody injured in the home and they need help, you could call to see if someone was actually, you know, the operators could break in on the line to see if someone was actually conversing, or if the line was just dead. And so that was an incredibly powerful thing to have the ability to do, because it meant you could listen in on other people's conversations. So there were people who were doing that, and way more than that. And then we also had these. And
did you listen in?
I never got to that level. I was very close to being able to do that kind of stuff right around the time that I got busted. So,
okay.
But I knew others who could, and a couple of them are you know, they're what's the word for somebody who's famous for the wrong reasons.
Infamous.
Infamous, thank you. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, I just got called that. I'm like, that's not a compliment, is it?
It depends on what it's for.
Infamous
And
for
who
it.
you're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there was a system called Alliance Teleconferencing that was designed for corporations and private people to be able to do multi-line conference calls. And so that was something that corporations would pay often a flat rate for and get unlimited usage, or you could pay by the minute, and then it became exorbitant, the costs. And it was, I think it was something like almost $1 a minute. So you could say you had 5 of your family members, you wanted to talk to them all at the same time, you could use this Alliance teleconferencing for those purposes. And we were making use of those lines for party lines. And so that was, once I got into the hacking world and I started to meet hackers, most of them were on the East Coast. So it was, far away and way too expensive to make calls to talk to them. So these lines were amazing, and you could have up to 20 people or more on the line at a given time, and it was like a late night party. That you could fall asleep and wake up, and people would still be talking on the lines. But they were also really great for sharing information and just trying stuff out, because you could dial in numbers, so you could call an unsuspecting victim, and we would take turns trying to weasel information out of somebody at the phone company or that sort of thing. So it was party lines.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's triggering all kinds of past life memories there.
Yeah, I cut my teeth on those, because that I learned a tremendous amount, and I got to meet a lot of people who years later, when I was researching to write this book, I knew there were a whole bunch of things that I did, but I couldn't remember how I'd done them because I walked away from it all. So I had to go and kind of refresh my memory, and I came across the old hacking texts that were written by people who I knew. And what I discovered as I was digging into it and researching it is that the people that I knew, and I was the first one to get taken out of the game, so to speak. There was a whole wave of busts that happened about 5 years after me. There was an operation called Operation Sun Devil, where the government did a sting and raided 27 different homes at the same moment, and busted a lot of people, and there were court cases. But that all happened 5 years after I was busted. So I found out years and years later that these people that I was in cahoots with and hanging out with were literally the top hackers of the era, and some of them are infamous in hacking lore. So that was kind of fun to discover along the way.
And do you think there is something about that timing, that you were 5 years before that wave of busts? You think that was in your favor in some way, stop you earlier rather than later?
It definitely was when it came to sentencing. It was a light sentence. It wasn't a light sentence in the sense that I was a first-time offender and I hadn't done any damage, and I hadn't stolen any data. I had no intentions of doing corporate espionage or anything like that. It was something that I was just doing for the fun of it. One of the papers called it a high-tech joyride, which I think is the best description of what I was doing. It's like the keys are there in the fancy automobile. I'm just going to take it for a spin. There are a lot of computers that I just would not have had access to unless I later went on to college and majored in information technologies. Then I could have accessed these servers, but this was a way to do that for free from the privacy of my own home. But to answer your question, I was really at the forefront of this new wave of legislation. The law that was passed in Seattle, I was only the second person to be tried under this law, and the first person received probation, and I received jail time along with probation and 200 hours of community service and some monetary fines as well. But if I had been busted 2 or 3 years later, the outcome could have been a lot worse. So the timing was really fortunate for me, and it also puts me in a pretty unusual position of having been the first hacker to go to jail for the crime of hacking in the world. So it was, in fact, a year after I went to jail was when they passed the Computer Crime and Fraud Act. It was in 1986, and that is still in place, I believe. It was the template for computer prosecutions, and it made it a 5-year prison sentence, maximum penalty per offense, and felony for computer trespass in the first degree. It's pretty wild, actually, if you think about the different kinds of crimes you can commit. Like you can bludgeon somebody, and you break into their home, beat them over the head, steal their computer. That's a gross misdemeanor, right? But they were trying to try me for felony computer trespass, which they didn't succeed in. There was plea bargaining involved, but they would not have been able to convict me for first degree because they would have had to have proven that I had gotten in with intent to commit other crimes, and they couldn't have proven that because that wasn't the case. So, but I had a good lawyer who, went to bat for me and got it reduced. But the prosecuting attorney who was assigned to my case was the man who co-authored the law that I was being tried with. So he had a vested interest in a conviction and a vested interest in a jail sentence because that hadn't been handed out. Other hackers had gone to jail before me, but not for computer crime because it had never been defined. So they were being charged for things like fraud and that sort of thing, espionage in some cases, But I was the first one to be convicted of this new law in Washington, and it's a strange little bit of my past.
Yeah, like a badge or some kind of honor of some kind, and then being up against the guy who co-authored the law itself, that would be extremely motivated to convict.
Yeah, he's kind of the nemesis through the book, because he's there pushing for this jail time, and I'm like, what the heck, it's like normally people would get hired at the companies, because they're like, oh, you exposed our weaknesses, can you show us how you did it, and we'll put you to work. That happened to a lot of hackers back then, but they were specifically tailoring the laws to make that not possible because they wanted convictions. And in fact, the way the law was written in Washington, I think it's really weird, but if you broke into somebody's computer, you were committing a crime against them, but you were also, according to the law, committing a crime against the state of Washington. So when they brought in the detectives or the authorities to try and catch me, which they eventually traced a call, and that was how they caught me. They basically gave up the rights to decide whether or not there was going to be a prosecution. They could choose not to prosecute, but the prosecutor still had a choice of whether to charge me, and of course he would do that. So it was a strange time when it came to the laws, and the discrepancy between when all was said and done, and there were loads and loads of newspaper articles from this, like when it first hit the news, it was front page on all the papers, and nightly news was covering it. It was surreal, actually, coming out of the courtroom when I initially pled innocent and later changed the plea. We were just buying some time for the court case. But when I came out of the courtroom, it was a wall of reporters and lights flashing, and I was a deer caught in the headlights, you know. And it was just a bizarre thing that they were very, very interested in. But when all was said and done at the end, it had kind of moved to the back of the A section of the newspapers. It was no longer front page news, and they were just kind of doing a recap. And there was an article covering my story with a picture of me saying light jail term for young hacker, and summarizing the case. And then to the right of that, on the same page, was another article that said killer of state man given 5 years probation.
Killer of state
Man. So a man from Washington state, killer of state man. So somebody from Washington there was a barroom fight and somebody got stabbed to death.
Okay.
And this guy got off with probation. He'd literally killed somebody and did not serve a single day in jail. And I had gotten into computers, had not damaged them, had not broken anything, had actually, in the case of these corporations, which I got into, I mean, we didn't mention this, but the 4 companies that I was charged with infiltrating were Microsoft, Boeing, Sunstrand, and Kenworth Trucking. They picked just the 4 biggest names. They had my crib sheet, as it was called, and all of my, I kept very good notes of all the stuff that I was doing, which was not very intelligent, because I should have, you know, disposed of all of that when I got the knock at the door. So they could have charged me with a whole lot more, but they did that just to save themselves paperwork, and they picked the biggest, most striking names. So yeah, but I'd gotten into these computers, and if anything, I did them all a favor because I wasn't a malicious hacker. And I went to jail for it, and this guy stabbed somebody to death and got off with probation. So I was like, there I was, 19 at that point, and I just said, the American justice system is hopelessly wrecked. And I had no faith in American justice after seeing those 2 articles juxtaposed on the paper.
Yeah, it's hard to have a respect for a system that continually makes a bigger deal out of victimless crimes and then turns a rather blind eye to the true victim fulcrums. So
yeah. I was given a book by my dad when I was 22 or 23 called The Emperor Wears No Clothes. You ever heard of that?
For sure.
Yeah, it's just for those who haven't, it's basically telling the story of the prohibition of marijuana and how it came about and who was behind that and what the real reasons were. And I read that book, and I lost all faith. Any remaining faith I had in American justice was gone after reading that, because, you know, that was at a time when they were just jailing people left and right for victimless crimes. You know, you're consuming a plant made by God, and you know, and they're throwing you in jail for it because some bigwig has decided that no, we can't have people having access to that because they could fuel their homes and clothe themselves and feed themselves and heal themselves all with one plant. So better suppress that. And yeah, that was a big eye opener for me.
Yeah, there are probably still people in jail for cannabis crimes or hemp crimes.
Yeah, well, they came out with the 3 strikes you're out law, you know, in a number of states. So some people ended up with life in prison, and they're still there for a plant. You know, it's just insanity.
That's legal in a great deal of places now. Not all states of the U.S., but
yeah, you'd think with the change of the laws, they would free all those people. You know.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, exactly. That was another thing, learning about the prison system and that it was privatized, and that you could send somebody to Harvard for cheaper than it costs to house them for a year in a prison. Like, somebody's making a lot of money off of prisons. Maybe that's why they want to throw people in jail for victimless crimes.
Yeah, that's what it all speaks to is, first of all, like a real engineered situation, creating crime where there was no crime, and then that's just, a ticker tape for, is that the right expression, ticker tape, or, like a cash register tape or something like
Mm.
that. Yeah, yeah, that goes, and it's nice and endless, right? Because there's going to be a steady supply. People continue to do things that are not actually wrong because
Mm.
we internally know that, and so yeah, there's no shortage of customers, let's say, for that business.
Yeah, I think crime rates go down in the countries that decriminalize. You know, um, I don't know the statistics off the top of my head, but I've heard that on many occasions. I mean, it makes sense. If you give the addicts what they need, then they're not going to have to break into homes and steal TVs, to pay for their drug habits.
Exactly.
Should
Yeah,
we?
I was in Colorado last year, which is one of the original states that legalized, and I was shocked. You could see for, I swear, 5 miles driving, you could see the sign of the business, and they would make it a monumental scale, the cannabis business, and that's the, like, almost most of the advertising on the highway was a cannabis chain of one or the other, right? Like, it's so big, it's like
Mm.
massive, and but try to go through
I,
the border either way with any amount of that, and they've got you, like, in the border laws, even though you're driving
mm.
from one place to the other where it's like legal in both places. It's just
Oh
madness.
my gosh. Oh, because you're crossing state lines with contraband
uh,
or something.
in this case, like country lines, US border kind of stuff, although
Oh,
you
right.
know what, when I think about it, North Dakota, I don't think they actually legalized, so yeah, that would be our border.
Well,
But
I moved to Europe in '97, and I've been here pretty much ever since. And so none of it was legalized when I left, and so it's been interesting going back to the States and seeing how it's changed, in that time. Like, and during COVID, I went 5 years without going back, and then I went back, and I like a smoke, and so I went into these, what do you call them? Stores or
dispensaries.
dispensaries. Yes.
Yeah.
And I was blown away. It was like, this is not what it was like when I was young. It's
I
just
know.
like,
Bit
they
of
got all this technology I'd never seen before, like things that do stuff, and I don't even know why you'd want to do them. And it's like, it's just like, what happened? It's surreal for me.
Yeah, yeah, it's a massive explosion. It's become kind of like bougie almost. You go into some of those stores. I've only been in a few, but they're all like very posh and
Oh yeah,
rich.
super customer service and people coming in, and they're like, I'm just like, where's the green at? It's just like, I don't
Yeah,
care what strain it is, just give me weed.
yeah, yeah. You get a menu that as long as you're RA,
Yeah,
and
yeah. It's like all
yeah,
these nuances, and oh, this one has it's like a sommelier or something, wine connoisseur. It's like a hint of cherry and a bit of musk, and it's like,
yeah, yeah. Oh boy, we get off on a tangent there. I could go for that one. I was going
mm,
to ask you, just like, so your main motivation, you said, was the fun of it.
yeah,
Can you unfold that? Like, is it the adventure fun? Is the frightening
yeah.
fun? Like,
Well,
people go on scary rides?
it's the
Or
learning stuff.
yeah.
It's going on. It's the thrill of conquest,
Hmm.
and like being somewhere you're not supposed to be, and this idea of being able to control something at a distance
Ah,
it felt like a superpower back then. Like, I mean, just the first time I got online and connected to a bulletin board. Some might not know what those are. That it basically, like, think of today's forums where you have a website you go to, and then there's different topics, and you can post, and other people can reply, and you can send messages to each other. That's what a bulletin board was, but it was in an individual's computer. And so for most people, it was just one phone line, right? So you'd call up, and only one person could be on that computer at a time. Later on, they got multiple lines, but you would log in and see if you had any messages, and check the forum to see what had been posted since you were there last. And I just remember the first time I got on one of those, it was like, it was like mainlining, it was just crazy how exciting it was, especially hearing that sound of the modems. And then eventually I got to know other people who had knowledge, and I was able to learn things, like I said, that made it possible for me to make calls for free. And then it really became a social life for me. And I was through those party lines, but also just direct contact with different hackers that I knew, who many of them were a lot more knowledgeable than I was. And I was really like open to learning. I was curious. I was gregarious and outgoing and humble. And so they liked me and they took me under their wings. I mean, information was the coin of the realm. So if you knew stuff, even if you were a jerk, if you had a lot of knowledge, people respected you and, wanted to cozy up because of what they might get, in the way of information. So yeah, it was a very interesting world with a lot of unusual characters. And when I started to meet them in person, they were anything but some were the classic, nerds with the tape on the glasses and pocket protector, but that was really the minority. The people came from all walks of life and were different ages. And yeah, it was the thing I love about hacking, which, when we look at the tenets of the hacking ethic, it really mirrors the truther community of today, right? It's a general distrust of authority. It's a love of technology, decentralization as a way of keeping power in the hands of the people, rather than everything funneling upward to the nefarious fucktards that are running the show. We need, this is what all of these the encryption and all these different things are so valuable for, but they're trying to do away with it with the CBDCs and digital ID and all that, and go for the full-blown fascist boot when it comes to technology. So the hackers were the antithesis of that. They were seeking to make the world a better place, and it was the idea that life could be made better through technology if it wasn't corrupted or co-opted. And so that idea of decentralization, distrust in authority, information should be free, things that can be used for the betterment of humanity or improvements in the world shouldn't be patented. They shouldn't be something where somebody's holding the purse strings on all of that, and greed runs the show, which is what we live in now. So I think that's lines up perfectly with the hacker ethic. With the truther community, or for lack of a better term, that's a term thrown around a lot, but community is also not necessarily the best term oftentimes, but it's the same ideas.
That's great. Yeah, it's a kind of Robin Hood thing, right? That seeing the potential.
Robin Hood, definitely taking from the rich, giving to the poor.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to Trinity 4. Mike explained to
Hey, Dave.
Stellium7. Yeah.
Got to hang out with him recently here in Spain. My friend Alex Michael had an amazing party that Dave was highly influential in bringing about. And he's right there and partially wrong. It's a 5-planet stellium in the 7th house. So I always love the number 7. So that's where the Stellium7 comes from.
Nice. Very good. Let's see, where should we go? Yeah, so I was just to say it out loud, I'm sure I could sit and guess on my own, but your motivation being the high-tech joyride, or that was the headline anyway. What were other, like, you think there's a whole range of motivation, like outright thieves that just saw it as a way to go and get rich quick.
Oh yeah.
What are the range of motives that people?
Yeah, I mean, you've got everything from, amoral psychopathic types on ego trips, which, that's what they want you to believe all the hackers are. I mean,
Right.
there was a concerted effort to demonize hacking in the eyes of the public. And it really started in '83 when the movie War Games came out. That was where they presented this idea that a young kid messing around on the computer could accidentally trigger World War III. And only through luck was that averted, right? And that was all propaganda to make, the keyboard warriors, these people who were interested in tech and sharing information and trying to game the system because they knew the system was corrupt. It's like they kept raising the prices on the phone, the phone calls, and well, wait a minute, the infrastructure is already there. Shouldn't the prices be coming down as they recoup the investments? Same thing when, they made CDs. All of a sudden, CDs were $3-4 more expensive than the vinyl. But that only was the case for about, the excuse was that the price of production was much higher on the CDs because it was a new technology. But within a year or two, the price came way down below that of vinyl. So they should have lowered the price then, but they never did. They just kept, raising prices and more. So that gives birth to things like peer-to-peer networking and file sharing. That's when Napster came about, right? Because people are like, these guys they're not giving the money to the artists, and they're just putting it in their pockets and running away with it and getting more and more power as a result. So that gives rise to new technologies and innovations that are wonderful and have been game changers for trying to wrestle the power back into the hands of the common folk. But it really is, like you said, Robin Hood. But back to your question, that it's the whole spectrum of people. I mean, you've got. I was questionable in my morality because I was thieving. I was stealing. I was a klepto when I was a teenager. Just like I didn't have the money to have the things I wanted, so I could just take them, and I would justify it and rationalize it in different ways. And I talk about that extensively in the book. The book is by no means a glorification of illegal activity. It's it's a very exciting read because it's first person me as I'm making these discoveries and meeting these people and going on these adventures and doing this crazy stuff that I was doing. But the narration is adult me 30 years later, 40 years later, that is kind of looking back on it with a sober view and reflecting on why I did the things that I did, and also the kind of the catharses that came about as a result of the things that happened to me, where I realized that I didn't want to do those things any longer, and not because I was afraid of the consequences, but because I had reached a higher degree of morality in my life. So I think it's a great read for teenagers in that respect, because they might identify with the kinds of things that I was going through in school and the troubles that I had. And so many children now are living on their computers. I mean, the gamer world, when we look at the numbers on truth videos, it's thousands of views, maybe something gets up to tens of thousands or 100,000, but when you look at the gaming community, there's hundreds of millions of people that are playing these games constantly, and they're in touch with each other through Discord and through different platforms. And that's kind of how I was living back in 1982 and 3 and 4 and 5 when I finally got busted. So it really was ahead of the game when it came to the kind of world we're in now.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think I'm going to give my son a copy for Christmas. By the way, this
It
is
makes a great Christmas present.
yes, yes, exactly. This is the direct link to Amazon.com in the chat here to the book, and I've got it up on the screen as well. So if you haven't seen the book before, I like the cover a lot. Actually, it was fun to do a thumbnail too.
Thank you.
And
Yeah, a lot of work went into that, and there's little hidden stuff in there as well for people who like Easter eggs. So on the front and the back cover.
For people who like Easter eggs. Oh, so there's some interesting details in there. Yeah, let's see.
Yeah,
Find anything.
Nothing too exotic, but
okay. Do you spell words in these? Like
yeah, there's two of them right there.
Okay, all right. Let me see. Yeah, there's
right upper left. There's the word systest, and then UETP, which is the login and password for the server that I had gotten into at Microsoft.
Oh, that is a lot of detail.
And then it says the Sprinter there right in the middle, which was my handle as a hacker.
Okay, that's the one word I actually can see. Yeah, I would recognize the other code.
There's stuff on the back cover as well.
Okay, neat. Yeah, so that would be fun to get a hard copy.
If you click on the go down, no, further down, not on the screen. Below there's two. There's a second. You can click on the back cover.
Oh, you can?
Yeah. No, right where it says read sample on the left. Okay. Just above that.
Oh, right. There's the back cover. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And that is that's a lot of fun because Gary McKinnon, he's got a blurb there, and he was one of the most famous hackers in the world for about a decade. He was in the UK and got busted for breaking into the Pentagon and NASA and the Department of Defense as well. He got into something like 90 computers, and they were trying to extradite him for a number of years and didn't succeed, fortunately. Theresa May, who was, I think, the prime minister in the UK at the time, was she ratified the extradition treaty that the UK had with the US, and basically made it so that they wouldn't be able to pull him out of the country. And he showed up on my channel and made a comment on one of my videos, and I recognized his name, and I couldn't believe it. And I thought, is he here because he knows about the hacking stuff, or is he here for my channel? And he didn't know about the hacking, and I had done a Kickstarter campaign a few years back trying to drum up some money for editing and that sort of thing with the book. And I thought maybe he had seen the promotional video that I had made, which was just a little 3-minute clip, and he didn't know anything about my past. So we ended up having conversations and recorded several hours of conversation, and I posted the first hour on my channel. But it was just a fun synchronicity that led to a really nice blurb on the back cover. He wrote the foreword to the book as well.
Okay. Oh, fun. Yeah. So, and it sounds like the only contact you've had with that old community of yours then. Is that true?
It's interesting. I did a launch party on the 17th of October, the 40-year anniversary for the book. And literally the night that I was going to do that, I had sent a few days before an email to an old email address that I thought was defunct to the guy who was basically my best hacking buddy during that time. And I hadn't had any contact with him for years. And he responded, and I was like, holy shit. I sent him the link to the book and the little video clip, which we could play at the end for people who'd like to see it.
Oh, sure.
So we had he asked me, he's like, you didn't use my name, did you? Still paranoid after all these years.
Right.
Funny. But so that was kind of funny that he showed up on my radar literally on the 40-year anniversary of my bust. So
amazing.
What are the odds?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, definitely recommend the book. It's very nicely written. It's easy to read, easy to listen to. Also, I had some of it just playing in my Siri. As
Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah, on that launch party, I read the first chapter aloud, and someone said that I had a very, what was it, a creamy, smooth voice with excellent diction.
nice,
So I was
nice.
like, okay, that's a good compliment. But I really wrote it to be a page turner. I wanted it to have a good pace and flow. Chapters are short, so it's like you kind of want to keep reading it. And I've had at least half a dozen authors have read it, and I've gotten really good reviews from all of them. So I feel good about the job I did. There was it was 40 years in the process. It ought to be it ought to be good. I rewrote it like twice, so it's in its third version.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Yeah, it didn't seem like AI wrote that book. I don't want to hold it against anyone that's doing that these days, but if I discover a book's been written by I lose interest pretty quick. I don't want to be mean about it, but I don't want to spend my time um, consuming something that a machine made.
yeah, I crafted every sentence.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
and
Yeah.
had it edited by a real editor who wasn't just plugging it into Grammarly or something like that. I had two fails. I had a failed editor and a failed proofreader that I was like, they're giving me more work because now I've got to go line by line and see what they've changed that isn't appropriate or what they've missed. So I was just, but it cost me a pretty penny in the end to have it all done professionally. So
It's a
I'm
hero's
I'm
journey.
far from break even at this point.
Right, right. It is a hero's journey to write and publish, write, edit, proofread, and publish. I know the first edition, I kind of rushed it out for my first in Acapulco in 2020, and it was full of typos. All the first responses that I got is like, "Oh, this typo and that typo," and it was just hang my head like this. And yeah, I think I went through 3 editors, had to fire 3 editors, and like even the so-called publisher is long gone, even though his logo is still on my book. Here, he never wanted to see me again. I didn't fire him. He fired me for unknown reasons. And yeah, it is. There were days where I thought it would be absolutely impossible, like and many days in a row. Oh,
Mm.
impossible. Oh, still impossible. Not going to break through. And there were, problems with the art, and there was problems with the proofreaders, and there was problems with the editors. And I at a time I was really like, oh, I was just really bothered by all of these people that were making such a mess of things. And then there came a really empowering moment where I said, you know what? I did it. All those bad things, I did it. They wouldn't do anything if I hadn't have started this whole idea and decided to write a book. Oh man, I had a book
So
come
did you self-publish in the
horrible.
end, or did you?
Through Amazon, and yeah, like
Yeah.
technically it's this Woodridge. Is it Woodridge? Woodbridge. Um, I don't know. He won't talk to me anymore, so he just put his logo on here, and we left it for the time.
Yeah, it's really like giving birth, to, I mean, the work involved. There were a number of times in the few years leading up to it. I finally was just like, I did a major push, and I'm like, I'm doing this, and I I shot myself in the foot in the sense that I didn't do all of the footwork for promotion. This is like, as a self-published author, that's like the most important thing of all, is that you're priming the pump and trickling out the information so that when it's ready to go, people jump on it and they read it and they review it, and that's how you get the algorithms working in your favor, and that improves your chances of having a bestseller. And you know the writing, fine, all that process, right up to the publishing, but the promotional side of things is just not my, it's not my thing. I'm not like, even for chiropractic, like I have a website and everything is internal referral and people just come to me. I never like go out and promote it, trying to get people in. And so interviews like this is how I reach people, but
Perfect.
We'll see how it goes. I think it'll be a sleeper hit at some point. It'll find the right audience and eventually maybe even be a movie. Most of the people who've heard the story have said it should be a movie, because it's kind of like Catch Me If You Can a little bit, as far as the vibe and all the hijinks and everything. So yeah. I think it would be very suitable for the big screen, and basically the book is already a screenplay if you just take it scene by scene. So that's the next step: audiobook and then screenplay, and who knows, maybe I'll have a retirement plan after all.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Definitely. Audiobook, that was equally, I jumped on that last year and I just made a mess of it. I mangled it, and I have to go back to the drawing board on that one.
Yeah, I need to look into that now, and I have the potential to have access to Alex's studio, so I can get the top-notch sound, but it's a learning curve, I'm sure, with that as well. And so he's convinced it's going to take me a month, and I'm like, no, it's going to take a week. He's like, we'll bet. Shake on it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, the actual read wasn't too bad. It's the editing for spacing and all of that kind of thing. And then, I don't know. But I'll have to get back to that.
So
go ahead.
You said you're about halfway in. Have you had any favorite parts or epiphanies or anything that stood out?
I just like the movement overall. Like you said, it's very action-packed. Every chapter leaves you wanting to know what's going to happen in the next chapter. I like the parts just getting into your head and heart as a younger person, and being willing to share where you were at, the fragility of, or not to say you were fragile, but the vulnerability, or however you describe that, and watching how do people find their way? How do children who maybe are not so connected and have that? You didn't use the word like shy or anything like that, but I like the unfoldment of you as a human being, that we could see that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I had an unusual upbringing, so my parents were very alternative. Hippies and into meditation and Eastern mysticism. And my stepfather owned a health food store. He was part of a collective of people that owned a health food store called Solar Winds. So it's an interesting story in that respect. Also, I actually cut about 100 pages out of the book on my final edit. It's still 370. Which is a long book, but everyone who's read it says it reads really quick, so it doesn't feel as long as it is. But it was a lot longer, and I wrote it like with all of the testing the matrix. Oh, it's another YouTube channel. Okay, I have a backup YouTube channel that I never use, and I saw that and I'm like, what is somebody accessing my account? And then I realized it was something that I had written.
There you go.
I was joking on what telling a joke about what they said before, but so I forgot what I was talking about.
Just the evolution of what was your last point there? The evolution of your own personhood and growing up, and
yeah, well, it's interesting. It's called The Hacker Prince, and now I'm talking with you on the King Heroes podcast, because I wouldn't say I've come into my kinghood yet, but maybe at some point. It's I no longer feel like a prince. There's wordplay in the title. Obviously, you know that as you've gotten into the story. Mm-hmm. Don't want to give it away, but Yeah, it's interesting to, like I said, it feels like another lifetime, that chapter of my life, and it's so different from what I'm doing now, and the kinds of things we talked about in the last conversation, with regards to my research and my YouTube channel and all that. It's couldn't be more different. But in a sense, it's similar, because it's like I went from hacking computers to hacking reality, I suppose. And
Hmm. Yeah, I was going to ask.
never got tired of asking unconventional questions and trying to pull back the veil on things you're not supposed to look at.
Nice, nice. I love that, and that's what I do a lot of work with people on sacred purpose and demystifying that you're some people might look on the surface and say it was your sacred purpose to be a hacker. It's like, what's the deeper thread there that you've been revealing that is also common to your life right now, just getting deeper into truths, and that's so it's not that one thing is going to be the purpose, it's the thread that goes throughout, your motive, the reason, what motivates you behind it is more of that stuff.
Yeah, what I've found in my life is that a lot of times when things do happen, you draw conclusions about what the reasons are or what the meaning of it is. And I find that it's almost always wrong, the conclusions that I've drawn. So there are things that happen along the way and things that you learn that maybe you have to learn those things in order to unlearn them later, or to realize that those are falsehoods. But they're things that maybe at one point you championed and thought were the truth. And that's happened to me over and over again. So it's actually freeing, getting to the point where you're perfectly okay saying, I don't know, but I'm curious and I'd like to know, but understanding that truth is a slippery thing that you might not be able to pin down ever, ultimately. But you can
Right.
get closer to it by starting to eliminate falsehoods.
Exactly, process of elimination. Sacred purpose is the same way, by the way. And yeah, that I don't know, it can be really uncommon. I found I'd say I'd gravitate much more recently, especially to people that are willing to say that. And when people don't know, there is a propensity, especially I find in the truth world, to just, and I'll say it affectionately, I said it yesterday again, make shit up, right?
Mm.
When they don't
Oh,
know, they put
yeah.
their mind like a computer to work, and they're connecting dots, and they don't know they're making dots, and there's assumptions behind things that they just consider to be truth to move forward with, and they're based on false assumptions. So it's, and at the end product can make a lot of sense, right? Oh, that sounds logical, but it just has no basis in reality at all. So
Yeah, and they get caught up in their own narratives, and then their ego gets wrapped up into whatever that narrative is, and then they go on defense and on attack, and yeah, it's interesting to see how the personalities play out in the truther sphere, but what I'm really grateful for, and is like the people that I'm in contact with now, having spoken at a bunch of events and made friends with a lot of people who I was admiring from a distance, through podcasts and presentations, and is all of the people that I have the most respect for are willing to admit when they're wrong, willing to admit when they don't know, but are sticklers for really, digging into things before making claims about them, and actual adherers to the scientific method as well, like not just paying it lip service, but really following it, in a pedantic way. It's amazing because they're so alternative in their thinking, and most of what they believe is not in alignment with the mainstream beliefs or narratives on just about anything. But these people are experts in their field, they're specialists, they're incredible minds and intellectuals and wonderful people, but they're also humble and like I said, willing to say I don't know when they don't. And it's as opposed to what you were describing, just making shit up, coming up with a theory tale and thinking it's fact.
Yeah, and getting attached to it with their ego, and then next level is always they got attached to it financially. That somehow,
Right.
whether it's products or they just don't want to admit that if you go back in their streams, it does not write anymore, or because they've been monetizing and all that kind of thing. So, and I'm not against it. I love entrepreneurs. I am one myself. Come from my parents who were, self-made people in that respect. But there comes times where, you're going to have to sacrifice. This is actually one of my favorite questions that I'll ask you right now is, what did you feel was true that maybe has evolved in the last 6 years in particular? What were any assumptions that you had moving forward about our reality? You could be in the tech world or the ancient history world that you're very versed in, things that you were putting forth as true that you realized just don't have a base.
Oh wow! Well, I mentioned The Emperor Wears No Clothes. I read that at 23, so that kind of woke me up to the power structures. And then another book the same year was Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper. So he was laying out the power structures, the secret societies, things like MK Ultra, all the different projects of different sorts that have now been declassified, so we know that they existed. It wasn't just a conspiracy theory of one sort or another. So I kind of woke up to all that stuff 35 years ago now. So my truther journey has been long. And then 9/11 came around. I saw through that right off the bat. Even before like Loose Change and these other things came out, I knew there was something rotten in Denmark. and then Earthshape and being digging into NASA and space agency fakery in general and questioning the actual shape of the Earth. That's going back 10 years now. And that is a massive rabbit hole unto itself that touches on every other rabbit hole. I call it the skeleton key of conspiracy theories, because you don't have to know what shape it is to know what shape it isn't. And the deeper you go into that, the more it starts to put the pieces of the puzzle together, and things that don't seem to be related suddenly are, and it makes sense. It's like the tapestry starts to fill in. And then COVID with virology. I suspected things about the jabs and all that stuff, but I never really contemplated the idea that the entire ology was based on pseudoscience. And now it's pretty clear that that's the case, that all of the supposed seminal studies that were proving the existence of the pathogen are hopelessly flawed in their methodology and their conclusions. And there's a whole bunch of really amazing people that have exposed that thoroughly, but not that it's reached. Well, they were the most heavily censored people through those COVID years, so it's not surprising that it hasn't reached the level of the zeitgeist when it comes to that understanding, because that's absolutely one of the biggest lies there is. And it's the fear porn of keeping everyone worried about the next pathogen is a huge one. So yeah, those are the biggies. And then about 8 years ago, getting on to these topics of things like hidden history and ancient civilizations, not from an ancient aliens perspective or the Gaia network, but like looking into things like the former existence of Tartary, star forts, mud floods, world's fairs, orphan trains, baby incubators, all kinds of wild stuff. The the zeppelins that were everywhere but are now not. That these are things that have a ton of evidence that each one of those things I just mentioned is a narrative destroyer in and of itself. And then when you really dig into them, instead of just hand wave dismissing them, you find that they all actually dovetail, and they create this very cohesive tapestry of a past that's completely different from what we were taught. And that led me to start questioning the nature of our physical reality, because if they can lie to us about something as big as the earth itself and something like virology, then what else are they lying to us about? And so these other rabbit holes start to clue you into what else is. And then and then that's what led to my investigations into geology, because all of a sudden now we've got these possibilities of like, wow, maybe there were once titanic trees or titanic beings, or the things that we were taught about how stone forms and comes about are maybe not necessarily accurate, and petrification might not take millions of years like we were taught, but could actually happen in a very short amount of time. And is there any evidence for that? And it turns out that there's a ton of evidence that contradicts mainstream narratives when it comes to geology. So that's kind of become my forte, is covering that stuff and my investigations into those things, which interestingly enough are not just theory tales, but they are extremely rooted in empiricism and my attempts, to the best of my knowledge, to follow the scientific method. And so that was a long answer, but
no, it's good. I like that theory tales too, by the way. And this is Mike's channel, if you want to go over and sub to him. And I was curious, like, are there any of the rabbit holes, theories, anything like within the considered within the truther world that have become bunk to you over maybe particularly the last 6 months?
Well, pretty much anything that's dealing with like space or aliens or that kind of stuff, I have a high degree of skepticism towards. Anything that has to do with what's happening out there and the claims that are made by any agency, I don't have any trust in.
Is there a big truther contingent on the aliens side? And I'm just totally not seeing it.
Well, I mean, when you look at, say, flat earthers versus ancient aliens, I mean, what is it, 100 to 1 or something? That's mainstream alternative. People like Graham Hancock are mainstream alternative. They're getting millions of views, whereas the people who I consider the real truthers are lucky to get thousands.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're often shadow banned. Their channels aren't necessarily taken down, but you can just see that there's no organic growth. I mean, that's the case with my channel and has been for a long time now. I shot up to 20,000 in about 18 months, and it's taken me 5.5 years to get another 12,000. And YouTube does not show my material to any new people at all. I only reach about 1/10 of my audience. And I could compare the statistics from the first 2 years to what has happened over the last couple of years. And the content that I'm producing now is more comprehensive. It's far better organized. It's visually better appealing. I'm much better at delivering the information in a more concise way, more rapidly. So all of that should lead to a faster growth. And it's like, I'll get a few subs and then YouTube will siphon off a few. So it's not that I'm looking to grow the channel or I want more subs. It's that I just want that information to reach new ears. I didn't want to create like a cult of personality where I'm, I've got my groupies of people who love everything I do. I mean, I have some incredible people who've been following my work for years that I'm very appreciative of, and they've praised a lot of what I've done, and I'm thankful for that, because it motivates you, because clearly finances are not a motivation. Yeah, that's the one.
Is it?
We can,
Yeah. Do you
yeah,
want to play that?
sure. Go full screen with it.
Okay. And are you hearing the sound just for that
Yeah,
few seconds? Okay. So,
yeah, I heard that.
okay, I'll blow that up here.
In February 1985, an 18-year-old Kirkland, Washington man pled guilty to 4 counts of computer trespass. The defendant was accused of gaining illegal access to 4 large Seattle area firms. Would you state your name, please?
My name is Mike Wilkerson. Usually they have the way it's set up is you dial in on one line and it calls you back on another, so that you can't. It's supposed to be the ultimate security. Well, what you do is you break into Cosmos and you find out all of the phone numbers that company owns, and you call it until you find the 2 that are hooked up to data, and then you get the callback modem and you set up call forwarding on that line, so it call forwards to your home number. That takes a lot of work, but haven't been caught, you have this invulnerable feeling. You just don't think you're gonna get caught. You ask any hacker out there that hasn't been caught yet, if he thinks he's gonna get caught, and he'll tell you no. And if they tell you yes, it's because somebody close to them just recently got busted, and they have a feeling of being watched.
Whether you're curious about the 80s hacking scene and some of its most infamous characters, or if you care to indulge in a bit of nostalgia for the early days of computing, or if you just simply like to kick back with a light-hearted coming-of-age tale, then this book is for you. Ta-da!
Very nice video.
Grandiose.
Oh, sorry. Turn that off. Yeah, you've got Hackers from Heaven. So there's a longer video here. I'll grab this link for people as well, so they can watch this one.
Oh yeah, that's that conversation I had with Gary McKinnon. That's an interesting conversation. We take up some other topics like Julian Assange and yeah, that's a good one for people who are interested in hacking. That's because we had never spoken before, and at the very beginning of the call, I was just like, I've got an unusual story you haven't heard. Everyone knows your story because it was plastered all over the papers for a decade, and I'll bet people would be interested in hearing this. So he was like, yeah, let's record it. So, that footage, I didn't mention this, but the green footage of me. I was 19 at the time that was filmed, and that was part of my plea bargaining agreement, was that I agreed to conduct an interview with the law enforcement, the heads of security from the companies I'd infiltrated, and there were, I think the FBI and the Secret Service were there as well. There were at least 2 of the letter agencies. So there was like 12 of us in this room, and they recorded me for like 2 hours. And I had never seen that footage, and I didn't know it still existed. But about 5 years ago, I reached out to the prosecuting attorney, and I hadn't had any contact with him in 35 years. And he was absolutely thrilled to hear from me, because he had always wondered what happened, you know, because I didn't conduct any interviews. I never wrote a book, and I never showed up on the radar again. I wasn't in hiding. I just wasn't in tech, you know. So and also the newspaper articles when I was busted in 85, went to jail in 86. Digitization of newspapers didn't begin until 89. Everything was microfiche up until that point. So you could go to the library, and if you knew the date, and you could find articles, but you had to know what you were looking for. And so like until I started trickling out information, it didn't even show up on Google searches. There was almost nothing on the internet about it, even though I was the first, you know, to go to jail for that crime. So I reached out to him, and he was just blown away. And so we ended up having these long email exchanges. He had Parkinson's, which had damaged his vocal box, so he wasn't able to do like a video call with me. But we started having these exchanges, and he said, "Hey, you remember that interview you did?" I was like, "Yeah." There was a whole chapter in my book about it, you know. And he's like, "I think I might still have that cassette." And so he went looking in his archives, and it was on beta. It wasn't on, it was that long ago. It wasn't even on VHS.
Wow.
And so he managed to digitize it, and most of it was corrupted, but he got about 15 minutes of it. And that green, it looks like it's a filter or something. That's just the way it came out from the damaged video. So it's just like perfect, because it's got that matrixy color and look to it, you know. But I had never seen that footage, and he sent it to me, you know, 35 years later. He sends me a link, and I download the file, and I was like, I couldn't believe it. And it's that clip that I played there. They asked me a very tough question there. They're asking me, how would you bypass this particular form of security? And if you'd asked me that now, I wouldn't have had a clue, you know. But I just like, you know, I just laid it out there. And you hear the guy, it was either the Secret Service guy or the FBI guy. After I finished saying what I said, he chuckles, because he realizes that what I said actually would have worked. And so that, you know, which is exactly why they had me in that room in the first place. They wanted to use the whole thing for, you know, training purposes for law enforcement. Yeah, so that was just a real boon, and he and I ended up being friends, which is funny, because he would, like I said, he's like the nemesis through the first 2/3 of the book or so.
Right. Oh, so fun. Yeah, I caught that chuckle. That was interesting. Let's see. I'd like to ask you at least a few more questions if you still have time.
Sure.
And there was one, I don't want to let this go, so maybe we'll go right to it. Same lady's asking about your opinion on CBDCs, and could they be hacked?
Anything can be hacked.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem, I mean, this is the thing. There was a guy named Robert Steele. He passed away a few years back. He was a CIA agent, and he once described hackers as the Minutemen of the digital era. You know, like Paul Revere and his ride, you know, the redcoats are coming, the redcoats are coming. The Minutemen were the ones that could be ready in a minute to defend the country against some unexpected attack.
Okay.
Right. And so he saw them as a beneficial force. And I think as we enter into this increasingly totalitarian digital era, it may be, you know, the weaponized autists, or the true hackers, computer geniuses that save us in some way from this seemingly unavoidable conclusion that is, you know, rolling out. Like, we keep talking about waking people up and and what's it going to take, and we've just got to stand up. But the power structures that are in place are, unfathomable. So how are the little guys with their sticks and, pitchforks or whatever gonna, well, take a page from the Nepal playbook. Obviously it can be done. Right. But in a place like the US, where there's so much advanced weaponry and everything, it's not like, overthrowing the government of a third world nation. Like how is that going to happen? How does the revolution happen without just incredible amounts of bloodshed? Well, one truly genius hacker could have an incredible impact on a whole lot of things, for positive or negative. But ultimately, I think that there could be positives that come about from that, people that have that kind of knowledge. That said, I would never in a million years be a hacker in today's world, because it is so easy to get caught. And in acquiring the skills necessary to do whatever you would want to do, you're probably going to show up on their radar anyway, because you're going to make mistakes along the way that are going to make them aware of you. So I wouldn't encourage anyone to go into hacking. White hat hacking, yes, because you can, like, this is the thing. If I had known how things were going to go 10 or 15 or 20 years later, I would have stuck with tech probably, because I did like computers, but I didn't want to spend my life in front of one. But, now they have bug bounties, where it's like you're literally brought in as a white hat hacker trying to crack systems. And if you find a major flaw, you get a lot of money for it. Like I know the son of a woman I know, or Cami Nodell, Bob Nodell's wife, from Globebusters. Her son is a hacker. He got busted for cracking Fortnite and giving away like new skins or something to people that was like in a coming update. So he got busted for that, and that.
Oh, I didn't realize.
She sent me an article that was in Forbes magazine about him. Well, he was last year at I can't remember what they call it, but it's basically like, it's not DEF CON, but it's some big event where they're doing like white hat hacking. He took third place. He got like 75 grand in a weekend. Like, so that there's a lot of money to be made for people who have incredibly deep knowledge about these things. So, but I walked away from it. So.
I hear you. And so would you say the scale of hacking is exponentially accurate to like the scale of technology now? Did it?
Yeah, I mean, any system has the ability to be, tinkered with or hacked or, thwarted. So it's so much more complicated now, because you have not just the complexity of computers today, but you have all the legacy computers from before, because there's still lots of old technology out there that's online that's running things, so you have to have such a vast amount of knowledge and programming skills, and there are all these different tools that are used by that community for hacking in different ways, and it's the amount of knowledge you need to be able to do it and not get caught if you're doing illegal things is not even, it's not even something to consider, really. I think the game is lost before you've begun if you take that route. Right.
And so would you say there's a lot more people doing it, or much fewer?
Oh, I think that, well, just in general, there's so many more people using technology in so many different ways now than back then. And there's a lot more white hat hackers. And then you got the gray hats and, the black hats. And like when it comes to DEF CON, just to give you some numbers, that's like 75,000 people in Las Vegas every year for a hacking convention.
Oh, I hope you get a spot.
And the funny thing about those conventions is they actually had their origin in the meetups that I was having with hackers on the East Coast. They were called hack cons, hacking conventions.
Mhm.
They weren't conventions at all. It was just a bunch of guys getting together in an apartment or a house and hanging out, and then going out on the town for hijinks. And I went once to Margate, New Jersey, and we were being rambunctious on the Atlantic City boardwalk and trying to get into casinos and just doing silly stuff, and so those were the actual seeds that became DEF CON, those hack cons. So I would think if any of the people in charge of the event read my book, they'll want me as a speaker there. So I have to wait till January to apply, but I was too late last year.
Okay. Yeah.
That's really my target audience, like the truther community, my own channel. I've done several interviews now, talking about this stuff, and it hasn't necessarily resulted in book sales. So either it doesn't sound well. I mean, I've sold some, but not. But if I were to reach that kind of group, I'm sure it would start to take off more, because that's really the demographic of people who would be most interested in this. But it's not a tech book for people who are like it said in the thing, for technophiles and technophobes alike. It's not, it's not at some high level with the tech that people are just going to eyes glaze over and tune out.
No, I was really pleased with that. It's extremely approachable and written in a kind of like you're having a conversation with the narrator. So yeah, I really like it.
There was a thing that I heard. Dan Brown was being interviewed one time, and they were asking, how do you do this? He's written so many bestsellers, and they're just incredible page turners. I read 4 or 5 of his books, and it's like you can practically read the book in a single sitting, because it's not some high level prose, but it's engaging, and it makes you want to know what's going to happen next in the story. And so they were asking him, how do you do that? And he said, it's very simple. I sit down to write, and when I do, I envision that there's another person that's across the table from me, and I'm going to tell them a story.
Right.
And I want that story to be so engaging that they don't want to get up from the table until they've heard it to the end. And I thought, that's a good way to do it, because I'm not writing Shakespeare here, so might as well make it engaging and fun. And so that was a good inspiration.
Yeah, if you can write like people talk, then you can easily engage them, and you can try to be over their head and sound so smart so they can think you're so great. That's really not how to reach people at all. Yeah, that's beautiful. So I'm curious, you talked about the catharsis of writing the book. If these are maybe, you know what, I want to make one comment quickly just about, you were saying how, just it's backtracking a little bit, that the hackers might end up being you didn't use the word
the
saviors.
heroes.
The heroes is a better word, not saviors, but yeah, that they might be showing up for us and in some poignant moments. And it reminds me of the movie, I believe it was Endgame, one of the Avengers. I didn't really see much of any of all of that, but for some reason I saw that movie. And do you remember, if I'm correct, there was the character, I can't remember, was it Brute or like Groot or something like that?
Groot,
thank you.
the tree guy. Yeah.
The tree guy. And then so the whole time along, he's got parents that are going like, get off that phone, get off that game, get off, always kind of riding him, and he's got his head in the technology. And then he is a saver of the day. At the end, he comes to life and uses his skills and assists in the journey. So
and nature wins out over technology.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, the symbolism of his character, exactly, or his superpower. Yeah, really fun. Yeah, so that's sort of baked into the story a little bit there.
Well, the Hackers from Heaven title for that interview that you posted the link to, that comes from the judge was contacted by a man who was the founder of the National Coalition for Children's Justice, and he saw me on television after my arraignment, and he got the idea that, wow, maybe maybe we could utilize his hacking skills, because he had this idea of creating a network for tracking missing children, because there was no national network. And if children were taken across state lines, there was no follow-up because there wasn't interstate cooperation. And and the people who were abducting children knew this.
Mhm.
And so they just grabbed kids close to the border and they were gone,
Tragic.
And then, the extent of what the government seemed to be trying to do to solve the problem, which is still huge to this day. I mean, if you do a Google search for how many kids go missing just in the United States alone, it's mind-boggling. So, they were, I mean, the extent of what they were doing is basically putting pictures on milk cartons, which was really just a trauma-based mind control thing, in my opinion, where
True.
kids are starting their breakfast with like, oh, there's another child that went missing. It's like, and so I don't think those milk cartons, saved a whole lot of kids, but that was the idea,
Good point.
But the thing was that he didn't have the funds to hire some corporation, and so he got the idea that maybe kids who'd run amok of the law, that were generally good, but had made some bad choices, might be utilized for good instead of bad. And so he got this idea he called it the Hackers from Heaven program. That's where that title came from. And so I met with a couple of my hacking friends, and we actually went to Vermont and met with him and his family, and toured the foundation and stayed in their log cabin, and it was a pretty amazing experience. And so that led to some inroads, but it didn't ultimately lead to some nationwide network that he had originally dreamed of. And he knew early on that the reason for that is still the reason, as we know from Epstein and all that, all the revelations of the last 20 years, is that it goes up to the highest corridors of power. So it's, that's their currency, humans. And so I think, ultimately it may be something like, Ready Player One, or, Endgame, or something where people with these kinds of skills they come out of the woodwork, and they stop really, really bad things from happening. It's a dream. I have a dream.
I also have a dream. That's the king hero dream, right? If there's some kind of beacon to pull them out from, could be, that one of the shadows of the alchemist archetype is hiding the superpowers, using the superpowers to hide the superpowers. And so it's like calling all kings.
Well, it's interesting. If you think about Lord of the Rings, you've got this kind of technological takeover. Sauron and Saruman are basically destroying the realm in order to create, this machine that can't be beaten, to enslave all of humanity and all the species, really. And if you think about the people running the show, that's kind of, who they are. I see them as dark wizards that have convinced humanity that magic isn't real. And so that renders them muggles, because they no longer believe in magic, and they don't have any idea how much power they have inside of them, and that they've got that spark of the creator within them. And that's what they're doing their best to try and suppress in all of us, right? And so I think it's interesting, like, there must be white wizards. If there's demons, there must be angels, right? But why don't we hear from them? Why don't we see them? And I think it's kind of like the prime directive in Star Trek, where they're following the rules, which are, the rules of engagement, which is that you don't interfere in a way that would affect the natural evolution and growth of the individual. But maybe you taps on the shoulder, or little synchronicities, or, save their life, in some miraculous way. Yeah. But ultimately they're not there going, hey, here we are. We're the good guys, come fight with us. Right. They're like behind the scenes doing something. So like the demons are out in the open, they're showing their cards, and, Satan worship is very is very alive and well, and is, you know, front page and center when it comes to media. So, you know, we know that the evil forces exist. Where are the good ones, right? And I think it's interesting. This is why I brought up Lord of the Rings, is because you got Gandalf, but then there's another wizard whose name I forgot, and he's just like this goofy little kind of troll guy that's out in the forest, friends with all the animals, and he's one of the most powerful wizards of all. And I think that may be kind of what's happening, is that there are people who are maintaining the balance and keeping the spark alive, that are, you know, they might be in a hut in the rainforest somewhere, but they're this incredibly powerful being. And, you know, ultimately maybe we all have the potential to become like that if we tap in and apply ourselves to, you know, learning more.
Nice. And then the collective, my dream is that if there's a critical mass number of people who just go into their lane and slave to purpose. Don't slave to a system anymore. Slave to your purpose, slave to the divine. Do that work. When you're called, do the work, whatever it is. And if enough of us were doing that, doesn't have to be everybody, then I think that will polarize and you know, probably greater divide, but we've already seen that there's no turning back from there. And then, yeah, I mean, that to me, that's the definition of uncontrollable, right? That you have a higher.
Yeah. And this is where finding the others is so crucial, because so many people who start to awaken to things are isolated, and they're, you know, we talked before about losing family members, you know, or not losing, but losing relationships with family members because we have beliefs that challenge them in a way that triggers cognitive dissonance. And instead of having that intellectual maturity of, this person believes different from I do, maybe they have a different religion than I have, whatever. But back when I was young, it was a hallmark of a mature intellect that you could actually maintain friendships or relationships with people who didn't believe the same as you. And that has been drummed out of people to the point where they're constantly trying to polarize us and get us to pick sides. And so people have lost that awareness that, oh, wait a minute, it's okay for somebody to believe something different, you know. But when you're isolated and you can't really speak to your families and family members and friends because the ideas are so radical and they will alienate you, that's when you got to go find the others. And that's what I was doing as a hacker. Like, I was getting abused in school for years, and that was my outlet. And I found like-minded people who accepted me for who I was and actually appreciated me and considered me a valued member of the group. Well, there are groups out there that are like that, and you can find them, especially now with the internet. And, you know, so for Earthshape, I would recommend Dave Weiss's app, you know, and there's all kinds of meetups that are happening. There's the Way Forward network with you know, Alex Zek and that whole crew. Mm-hmm. They're connecting people. I bought the app, and there was one person in all of Spain. I was like, oh, you know, it's like one in the whole country, you know?
Yeah.
Well,
I was
guess what? That one person lived 20 minutes away from me.
Amazing.
And is now a friend.
Amazing. Right? Okay.
So,
yeah.
That's how it happens. Synchronicity kicks in. One of my best friends now is a guy who recognized me from my YouTube channel on the street in a town far from here. He turned out to be a big fan of Alex Michaels, the conspiracy music guru, and he's an incredible musician. And now they're jamming together and making songs all the time. And it's only because he saw me and recognized me from my channel on the street. So, you know, you got to take the time, put yourself out there, take risks, but find the others and find people you can talk to without worrying all the time. Like, what are the consequences going to be? You know, and that's what I was doing back in the 80s with all these people in our party lines and stuff. So here we are 4 decades later, nothing's changed.
Wow. Yeah, that's the sign of secret purpose right there, that you've got that thread, you're on it. And I think the last thing I wanted to talk about, you're getting some good appreciation here. Hello to Paul on X, by the way.
I appreciate the comment.
Almost no one finds me on X, so I appreciate you being out there. And yet Rick said, have wise, enjoyable, authentic guests, especially Mike. So yeah, let him know he's appreciated, of course.
Thank you.
JJ Hemcrete Bears here and Quietly Content Bear. You guys seem to come as a pair.
Lots of bears.
Pair of bears. Yeah. Very good.
Big Bear has been talking about biogeology. Tell him to get me on.
Oh, yes. Be Natural. I was watching a bit of Topher talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then speaking of these two bears that I see also have you come across Garrett Smith's work?
The name rings a bell, but I can't place it.
Okay, maybe I could get with you. Not that I can't talk about it. He's an ND, and so you know how there's outliers, a naturopathic doctor. And, so there's outliers, and then there's outliers among outliers, and
yes,
he's that. And he turned me into it. Not that he did that, just because I wanted to go deeper. You know that. I appreciate a lot of the knowledge in the natural health world. I'm a cancer survivor. I nearly died and tried hard for a natural cure. I failed, right? I couldn't do it despite spending thousands of dollars working with the best ND in Canada, moving across the country to do that. Now I know why that was a fail. Now I know, but it's taken me all of these years because there's so much, like if I could sum it up without starting a whole new live stream, and I'm happy to talk after and follow it up in any way, is that the natural health world is more weaponized, or at least equally weaponized against us than the mainstream.
Yeah, it's a scary thought, but if you follow the money, I don't trust vitamins anymore.
Right. Well,
I get Whole Foods and stuff. Or certain things. Yeah.
This is the natural health psyop. Don't trust pharmaceuticals like vitamins, and do trust food. Well, you would be disturbed the scale of the lie that is.
Of the lie that trusting food is? Well, yeah, food is also completely corrupted. I'm surprised any of us is alive at this point.
Yeah. And then the kicker is that the truthers don't like it. They don't like the greater truth of it that has staggering amount of receipts and research. And you can't look away. You cannot look away. The first interview of him I watched, I'm like, oh no, that can't be true. Nope. Made me watch again. I don't watch anything again. Nothing. Almost.
Inconvenient truths.
Very inconvenient truths. I watched the second time. I'm like, darn it. That sounds like it's explaining all the mysteries, or a great deal of the mysteries. Third time I watched, I'm like, okay, I got to talk to this guy. I had him on once. I'm still a little bit on the edge. By the second time, I'm like, there is absolutely no denying this. And I've been a very close student with a lot of productive results to show for it. And I'm not the only one. There's literally hundreds of people around him getting results with this stuff, where the other stuff you can see, if you've had any serious, it's good. You can play in natural health all day long. And if you're young, you can get away with that. But you might notice how as you get older, I have no idea how old you are, Mike, but the bottom line is toxicity accumulates and becomes much more of a nemesis over time. And detox slows down over time, especially for women. And so yeah, if you give me permission, I will share a few things with you.
Sure.
And if you're braver than most truthers.
I'm brave.
I love my friends. I'll talk to them anyway, but I have been discounted offhand. Like
I'm surrounded by people who live on black pills, so
you're not Excellent.
The whole I don't know if you're familiar with Mark Devlin and just the whole idea of that God might not be the benevolent creator that we were taught. I'm not of that mindset personally, but I understand the argumentation. And when they lay out the arguments, it's kind of hard to deny the perspective, but I have the conclusion that I think it's more profound and complex than we can understand. And So the things that they're saying about that are not necessarily true, but there's a lot of other subjects that could be said about as well. So.
Right. And there is truth to be had. It's raised the standard of the research and the evidence, so-called evidence I'm willing to accept, because all of a sudden now this is off the charts, and most people are making claims that really don't have a base, and being heavily invested in that. Anyway, I'm going to get off that soapbox for a second because it doesn't end. And the very last question I would love to ask you, bringing attention back to your work and this actually quite great accomplishment, is that you mentioned that it took you through a catharsis. And that's what I noticed as I wrote my book and edited my book and re-edited my book, is that it brought waves and waves and waves of my own inner experience to the surface, things that I really didn't know were there. I thought I had healed from my my cancer, for example, and then I could still make myself cry by reading my own book. And so I'm curious at what that was like for you, if you feel like sharing.
Well, the catharsis for me was more just bringing the project to fruition. I mean, there were times I went through a separation after 25 years, that about 5 years ago. So I've never shared that on my channel at all, like what the things that were going on in my personal life. But I had some of the roughest years of my life, even as I was having a lot of fun things and praise from the work that I was doing, and the last couple of years being invited to a lot of different events to speak. That's all been amazing, but it's been juxtaposed by my like family life being in tatters in many ways. So there were times throughout that period where I was just like, am I going to die before this book gets out? Like, what if something happens to me? There's some book that I read a long time ago. I don't remember the exact words, but it was basically like, don't die with your song unsung, and not that was my song, like that. It's a song, it's a story, but I have another 5 books that I'd like to write. 2 of them I've already started. One is basically half written. So I've got a lot, that I want to accomplish. But the catharsis was like focusing and the discipline to bring it to fruition and to make it a product that I could be proud of, because I'm a very slow worker, but I'm a perfectionist also. And usually when I finally do something and it comes out, it's of a very high quality. But it's like kicking a donkey. I can go through very long periods of time where I'm unproductive because I'm, ruminating and musing over all kinds of different ideas, and I beat myself up for not being more effective or productive or making better use of my time. And I just have to honor, like, that is a use of time. Also, the rumination is an important part of the process, but it's been very cathartic to finally finish that and have it done. And it's the first time in my life I have an asset, because even as a chiropractor, I'm trading time for money.
Right.
I don't see it that way. I'm trading my skills for money. A lot of people come in thinking I'm trading my time, and they're like, well, this is expensive for the amount of time you spent. It's like, no, you're not paying for the time. You're paying for the expertise. Just like I had to pay, $100,000 to go through chiropractic school to get that expertise, So they're focusing on the wrong thing. They're focusing on the time spent rather than how effective was the time spent.
Time for dollars is the biggest tool of slavery, right there.
Right. Yeah. And so this is the first time in my life I've got something that's like, it's out there, and always is a sketchy word to use, but unless something weird happens or the world, starts to really go into chaos, that's going to be there for a long time to come. And hopefully it'll be enjoyed by a lot of people. And like I said, maybe it'll be a screenplay someday and a movie. But that was a cathartic thing for me, to complete it and to have that like feather in my cap finally after all this time.
Nice. So I'm going to post the link again And yeah, it's a really emotional kind of a process to go through, like a hero's journey of its own. I was amazed. I'm writing about the hero's journey, but I'm going through a hero's journey, writing the darn book and getting it out. So there is the link. I hope can anyone let me know if you can tap on that, or if you can click on that. You should be able to click the link part. And I do recommend that. I'm going to go grab a copy for my son. I'm praying that he'll sit and read a book. If not, I'll have to wait for the audio.
My son is reading it right now, and he was like,
Oh, fun.
he's like, he said that it was very well written, and he's 21, and he's like, I can't believe that it's you. Like, and I was like, yeah, I can't either. It's like, it feels like a different lifetime. So it's an interesting thing. My daughter read it. She loved it. She read the second half on the plane back from Australia, and she kept looking over at me and she's shaking her head the whole time, like, what? Because you haven't even gotten to the exciting stuff. If you're at the halfway part, man, it's just speeding up.
Well, good for I don't know how old your kids are. They're probably not kids, but good for them.
24 and almost 22.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, good for them. I think I kind of made my son read the book, and it's such a gift to them and anyone, down the line, that you're leaving this legacy. My grandma wrote a book. She never did publish it, but having written it, her mother's story, so that you realize very quickly, when I lost both my parents, and then I lost the majority of the extended family to the COVID thing, that like how quickly lines disappear, and all of the data that is the real and true stuff that gets passed down, right? The living data.
Oh,
so
yeah,
good for you.
Yeah, I wish, like, my grandmother lived to be 102, and she was still pretty sharp, right up till the end. But I would have loved to talk to her about, like, Tartary and World's Fairs and things like that, because, she probably knew stuff, that would have been interesting. And yeah, that's like the legacies and the heritage and the traditions and the wisdom of plants and all these things, that it's just like steadily being done away with. But it's all there to be found if you go looking for it on the internet now, as long as we have that, but they need that. They need all that structure to control us. So I don't see it going away anytime soon.
Yeah, exactly. Excellent point. Yeah. Well, I think we did a really good job. This is a beautifully satisfying. Yeah.
It was a nice conversation. I really I appreciate it when I don't have to go into presentation mode and like show a bunch of stuff, because I like the dialogue, and I like the way with each person it leads to like different directions, and I don't like telling the same stories the same ways over and over again. I get bored hearing myself talk. So I love it when questions are insightful and it meanders.
Nice. That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming. Any last words you wanted to share at all?
No, thank you all for listening, those of you who are, and hi to all the bears. There's a few of them in there.
No, I'm always honored.
I've had a couple of exchanges with Owen. Actually, I talked to him once I was at Mike Winter's place, and I was leaving, and he was actually interviewing Owen. So I talked to him for about 10 minutes, but I don't know if he remembers that.
Oh, very good. Yeah, I don't want to make any meaning, but he's avoided me. I've made a few attempts at inviting him, and there's not the interest, or I don't know what it is. But Andrew Tregley, I don't know, to turn your book into a screenplay is.
I've not heard of Andrew Tregley. I don't know who that would be.
So Paul,
more about him, or why would I contact him?
Yeah, if Paul and I are in contact, so if you want to send me any more details, I can pass that on to Mike if you like. And that would be epic. Definitely would be. All right, my dearest. Well, I'm going to play us out, shouting out to my son who does both the intro and the extra music for the King Heroes Dream podcast. He's Psycho on YouTube. His that's his hacker name. It is in the notes below if you feel to go and sub to him. He's got a full-time job and a full-time girlfriend now, so he's not really making any
He's
new
leaving you
music
on your
things.
own now.
Yeah, exactly.
And empty nester syndrome.
Totally. I know it's yeah, I'm dealing with it. I've been trying to call him today. Are we on for dinner? Are we on for dinner? Not getting through. So we'll see. Wish me luck.
Me too. I have more freedom than ever now, but there's like, oh, what am I going to do with all that freedom?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, my dear. Well, thank you so much for being here. What a
Thank
joy.
you for the invite. It was wonderful to be here.
You are
And,
very welcome.
take care, everybody.
Okay. Lots of love. Bye for now.